It was a quiet Sunday morning in the small town of Ashfield. The streets were wet from last night's rain. The air smelled fresh, like leaves after a storm. Church bells rang from the distance, calling the faithful to worship. In the middle of the town stood a small church painted cream and white. The sign read, House of Living Grace, Pastor Daniel Cole. Pastor Daniel was a man everyone knew. Not because he shouted the loudest, but because his voice was calm, warm, like a soft blanket on a cold night. He prayed for the sick, fed the hungry, paid the school fees of children he didn't even know. Widows called him son. Children called him Daddy Daniel. To the people of Ashfield, he was the man who could never do wrong. But that Sunday morning, something was different. Daniel stood in front of his mirror, buttoning his white shirt. His hands trembled slightly. His eyes looked tired, red, like he hadn't slept in days. On the table beside him lay a letter, folded twice. The paper had small stains. Not water. Not tea. Tears. He picked up the letter, stared at it for a moment, then slid it into the inner pocket of his coat. From the bedroom, his wife, Sarah, called, Daniel, you're going to be late for service. He didn't answer. At church, the service began like every other Sunday, hymns, clapping, smiling faces. But Daniel's preaching felt heavier, slower. Halfway through, he paused. His eyes scanned the crowd, but it seemed like he wasn't looking at them, he was looking through them. Then, for the first time in 20 years, he ended the service early. That night, the town's peace was broken. Sirens cut through the air. A police truck drove slowly toward the church, headlights on full. People ran after it, murmuring. The truck stopped at the church gate. 2 officers stepped out and walked inside. Minutes later, they came out holding a man in handcuffs. Pastor Daniel. The crowd froze. Mistake, someone whispered. Impossible, another said. Sarah came running, her wrapper loose, her hair untied. Where are you taking my husband? She cried. The officer didn't answer. At the station, questions flew like arrows. A suitcase had been found in the church storeroom. Inside, a bundle of foreign cash, a pistol, and a blood-stained shirt. The shirt belonged to a young man named Michael, Daniel's former choir leader who had disappeared 3 weeks ago. Daniel didn't deny the items were in the church. But he didn't explain how they got there. News spread fast. Some said it was all a setup. Others whispered that Michael had argued with Daniel about money for the youth group. Some swore they saw Daniel and Michael working together on the night the boy went missing. Sarah refused to believe any of it. This is my husband, she told anyone who would listen. He's not a killer. But the evidence piled up. The cash had Daniel's fingerprints. The blood on the shirt matched Michael's. And the last phone call from Michael's phone had been to Daniel. Still, Daniel kept silent. Not a word in his defense. In court, the prosecutor painted him as a man with a double life, a kind face hiding greed and violence. Sarah cried through every hearing, clutching her Bible like it could stop the world from falling apart. Then, on the final day of the trial, Daniel finally spoke. His voice was steady, but his eyes glistened. Michael was like a son to me, he began. The courtroom was silent. He came to me one night, afraid. He had seen something he should not have seen. Something that could destroy powerful men in this town. Daniel paused. They were watching him. He begged me to hide him. I kept him in the storeroom of the church. I gave him food, prayed with him. But one night, I came back and he was gone. There was blood on the floor. His shirt. His bag. His phone. They left it there for me to find. So I would take the blame. Why didn't you tell the police? The judge asked. Daniel lowered his head. Because they are part of it. Gasp filled the room. The judge's face hardened. Do you have proof? Daniel reached into his coat pocket. The letter from that Sunday morning. He handed it to the judge. Inside was Michael's handwriting, trembling, desperate. If you're reading this, Pastor, it means they have found me. Please don't fight for me. They are everywhere. Tell my mother I love her. Tell her I am sorry. The judge read it twice. His expression didn't change. This is not enough, he said. The gavel came down. Daniel was sentenced to life in prison. Sarah collapsed. The crowd murmured. And in Ashfield, the church doors closed forever. Years passed. Weeds grew around the building. The paint peeled. The bell never rang again. In his small prison cell, Daniel aged quickly. His hair turned white. His hands shook when he prayed. Yet he still prayed. Not for himself, but for the town, for Michael's mother, even for the men who had destroyed him. And when Sarah visited, she always found him smiling faintly, as if he knew something the world had forgotten. One rainy evening, as the prison guards passed his cell, they found him sitting on his bed, eyes closed, hands folded. He was gone. But his lips were curved in the gentlest smile. They buried him behind the old church. No crowd. No choir. Just Sarah, holding a single white flower. And in Ashfield, some still whisper his name when they pass the church gates. Because they know, not every man behind bars is guilty. And not every man outside is innocent.